Here's some proof that we are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. As it is written, 1 Thessalonians 5:21, it says, prove all things. And in this edition, I'm going to use the so-called black woman and the curse that fell upon her to prove that we are the Israelites, that we come out of the nation of Israel, beginning with the tribe of Judah, all the way down to the tribe of Issachar. And this curse mainly fell upon the tribe of Judah, the women of Judah, which happens to be the so-called black woman, the so-called West Indian woman, and the so-called Haitian woman, because the tribe of Judah consisted of three tribes: Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and they were collectively known as Jews during the Babylonian captivity. And of course, when we came into slavery, all our names were changed. You know, the tribe of Judah went from being the tribe of Judah to the so-called Negroes. The tribe of Benjamin went from being the tribe of Benjamin to the so-called West Indians. That was all part of slavery underneath the Edomites, which is the so-called white man. Now that's history 101 concerning the Israelites. But in this edition, I'm going to use that curse that fell upon the so-called black woman, that being her being bald, as proof that we are the Israelites, because the so-called black woman, the so-called West Indian woman, the so-called Haitian woman, that curse mainly fell upon them. And that is a fact. Here's an article here from Nidra Roan, and it's entitled "The Bald and the Beautiful. Black Women Need to Get Real About Hair Weaves." And here's a fact: the number one wearer of hair weaves on the planet is the so-called black woman. That's a fact. Okay. Now in the title it says "The Bald and the Beautiful." That's another curse that fell upon them, for them to lose their beauty. You know, the majority of so-called black women are ugly. I mean, they're gruesome looking. Okay. I'm gonna just put it to you as it is. And that's due to the curse, which I'll read in the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. But I want to read a little bit of this article, and it'll set the stage for this lesson. And we're going to focus mainly on the part where it says "the bald." Okay. Here's the picture of something every so-called black woman is familiar with: weaves. Okay, take for instance the so-called Koreans, which they're really Moabites. They have made a killing, you know, economically wise, off the so-called black woman, just on weaves alone. Okay, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry, weaves, and it need not be so, because the glory of a woman is her hair. This is the book of 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter. Let me start at the 14th verse. "Doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him?" And you know what's funny? A lot of so-called black men can actually grow their hair longer than so-called black women. That's crazy. Okay? Because according to the scripture, according to what I'm reading, is if a man have long hair, it should be a shame unto him. In the 15th verse, "But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering." Okay? Let me read that again. "But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. So what happened to the so-called black woman? Well, her glory was taken from her. And we're going to find out why when we go in the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. But let's get back to this article here. As you see the box here, 100% human hair weaving. It's a damn shame for the so-called black woman to take another nationality's hair and sew it onto her own head. That's a curse. Okay? That's not a blessing. That's a curse. And a lot of these so-called black women that do that, they pay for that by ending up with permanent hair loss. Okay? It's a damn curse. And the main nationality that they go for when they try to get this long hair is the so-called white woman, in particular the blonde weave. That's the number one weave that the so-called black woman wears. The blonde weave, because in reality, the so-called black woman, the average so-called black woman is trying to look like the so-called white woman because they believe that that is the epitome of beauty. They believe the epitome of beauty is to look like the so-called white woman. Okay? But then they get mad at the so-called black man that goes and gets the real thing. I mean, the hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Okay? Anyway, let's read a little of this article. Now, I'm looking at Nidra Roan. I don't know if that's her real hair. It probably is, since she's talking about weaves. And she's talking about getting real about the weaves. And that's true, because you'll have a so-called black woman, they'll wear that weave and then they'll be playing in it like that's their real hair. They'll be tossing it back and forth, tossing it out of their eyes, just like the so-called white woman does. And you're looking at the so-called black woman, and you're saying in your mind, bitch, I know you don't think that I believe that that's your real hair. But she'll behave like that's her real hair. You know why? Well, I just read it. I just read it. That's her glory. Okay? 1 Corinthians 11:15. But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her. That's the woman's glory, her hair. For her hair is given her for a covering. You've seen it so many times. You've seen so-called black women that has lost their shape. They're all fat, and that also is a curse. That also is in Isaiah the 3rd chapter. They're all fat and out of shape. But one thing that's always tight, is her hair. I mean, she could have the shape of of Baloo the bear. Okay, Baloo the bear from Jungle Book. All right, she could have a shape like that, but all out of shape. But her hair, oh man, her hair is going to look tight. And in most cases, some simple-minded Negro paid for her to get her hair done. Or like they say, to get her hair did. I got to go get my hair did. It's all about her hair. Because her hair is her glory. I've just read it. 1 Corinthians 11:15. Anyway, let's get into the article. It says at any given time, 50% of black women are hiding their real hair with fake hair. Now, she's being conservative. Nidra Roan is being conservative. 50%? I would venture to say 99.9%. Every time I see a so-called black woman, she always has a weave on her head, or a wig or a weave. Okay? Despite the natural hair movement of the past decade, which has led black women to abandon chemical straighteners, for some women, dealing with curly and tightly coiled hair feels like a daily chore. And we know how lazy the so-called black woman is. She's extremely lazy. Okay? She's the laziest woman on the planet. One of the options for managing our hair is to sew another woman's hair into our own, which is madness. The process is clinically proven to cause permanent hair loss. Now let's prove that. Here I have some illustrations here to show you what happens when you sew somebody's hair of a different nationality into your own. That's unnatural, okay? And this is what it causes. It causes permanent hair loss. You end up as bald as Kojak, all right? Those of you who remember Kojak from the 1970s with the lollipop, sucking on the lollipop saying, "Who loves you, baby?" Kojak, played by Telly Savalas. Yeah, you end up looking like him. There you go. Here's another example. Okay, this is a curse, man. I don't know if this is a dude or if this is a woman. And by the way, speaking of transvestites, the number one group of women that look like transvestites is the so-called black woman. That's another fact. The majority of so-called black women out there, they look like men with men in drag. Okay? But that's also a curse. And we're going to get to it in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. I just want to show you some examples of women that have put on weaves and the penalty for putting in these weaves. Okay? There we go. Look at that. And I'm going to come back to that too. The mentally insane black female. She is mentally insane. That's a fact. That also is a fact. I'm going to come back to that too when we go into the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. Look at that, brothers and a few sisters. This is horrendous, man. But this is all a curse. This is a curse. Okay? And this is what happens when you take a weave and you sew it into your own hair. You end up losing your real hair. Even Rihanna, okay? She wears many wigs, Rihanna. Blonde wigs. That's the number one color for so-called black women. A blonde weave. Because they're making a statement. Whether they know it or not, they're saying, I really want to look like the so-called white woman. Even though they won't admit it. The so-called black woman is in total denial, man. All right? Total denial. Okay? Yeah, I had seen some other examples, of women wearing weaves, and it was just as horrendous as this. Okay, here's another example there. There you go. Look at that. The facts don't lie. The pictures don't lie. So let's get back to the article. Oh, here it is. Here's the one I was looking at. Look at that. Look at that. That's a curse, man. Look at that. Look at that. Huh? Look at that. Look. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Wow. Look. Whoa. What is that? Look at that. I'm speechless. Back to the article. This isn't a question of who is selling out more. The naturals, straight naturals, the relaxed, or the weave wearers. It's a question of baldness, and it needs to be addressed. So I'm going to address it according to the scriptures. I'm going to show you why you so-called black women have to wear weaves in your head to try to recapture your glory, which is your hair, naturally given to you by the Heavenly Father. Now, in the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter, and at the same time, I'm proving that we're the Israelites that the Bible speaks of, in particular, the so-called black woman. Because what I'm about to read, the only group that fits what I'm about to read is the so-called black woman, the so-called West Indian woman, the so-called Haitian woman. Okay? Really the women of the other tribes, but mainly them. Those 3 tribes, which collectively is known as the tribe of, or the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom, if you will, the Jews. Anyway, the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter, which the subject matter is Judah and Jerusalem. Let's prove that. The first verse, for behold, the Lord of hosts, doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water. So the subject matter is Judah and Jerusalem and what the Lord hath taken away. Now when we jump down to, because in the interest of time, I just want to go to the point. When we jump down to the 16th verse, because the subject matter is Judah, Jerusalem, and what the Lord hath taken away from them. The 16th verse, moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks. That means to behave proud. Haughty means proud. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at this word haughty. And that's the so-called black woman today, man. She is the, well, let's read the definition and see if that don't fit her. All right. Haughty, arrogantly superior and disdainful, proud, arrogant, vain, conceited, snobbish, self-important, pompous. Now you tell me if that ain't the average so-called black woman. On the whole. That's why a lot of so-called black men today don't want to deal with the so-called black woman because of her attitude. Ask any so-called black man with common sense. I'm not talking about niggas, all right? I'm talking about a so-called black man with common sense. Ask him why he won't deal with the so-called black woman. And he'll tell you the number one reason is her attitude. Well, that goes back to the word haughty. As you see here, proud, arrogant, vain, conceited, snobbish, superior. The so-called black woman acts like she's superior to the so-called black man. That's a fact. And I know because I've dealt with so-called black women. They have that air about them like they're superior, like their shit don't stink. Well, there it is right here. Isaiah 3:16, moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty. And I just showed you the definition for the word haughty. Okay, which the word haughty in the French is haut, which means high. Okay, haut, high. All right. So she has a high and mighty attitude. As a matter of fact, it's the so-called black woman that coined the phrase, I can do bad by myself. In other words, the so-called black man, he can't do nothing for me. That's a haughty attitude, okay? Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks. Meaning when you walk with stretched forth necks, meaning you have a, let's go back to the definition. You have a proud, arrogant, vain, conceited, snobbish attitude. You have a superior attitude. You have a pompous attitude. Okay? Wanton eyes, meaning undisciplined. Wanton means undisciplined, which the so-called black woman is always looking. She'll be walking with you and she's always looking at the next man. Totally undisciplined. Okay? Instead of keeping her eyes to herself. You'll be driving with her in the car and she'll be sitting in the passenger seat riding shotgun, as they say. And she's checking out some other man in his car. You know, when you come to the stoplight and another man may drive up, she's looking all in his car, looking all in his face. Totally undisciplined, man. Walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, meaning switching. And making a tinkling with their feet, because back then they used to wear, which they still do, they wear jewelry around their ankles. And that would make a tinkling. Now, today, the modern day version of that is they wear those shoes, you know, those high heel shoes, and they purposely make a noise. You've seen the so-called black woman on the so-called white man's job in those office buildings. They'll purposely walk switching, because because they're really trying to get the attention of the boss, which in most cases is a so-called white man. Okay, and you know where that leads. Anyway, they'll be walking and switching, and like the scriptures say here, making a tinkling with their feet. So because of that, because a woman is really supposed to be, she's supposed to be modest. She's supposed to be, shamefaced. She's supposed to be silent. Okay, there's a conduct, there's a code for the woman according to the scriptures, man. But anyway, because she's behaving like this is the curse that shall fall upon her. And you tell me if that curse don't mainly fit the so-called black woman. Let's read it, the 17th verse. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. Smite means to destroy or kill. With a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. Now a scab is what's left after a sore heals. A scab is what's left. And the scab is usually dry and crusty. And that's the so-called black woman's hair, man. Dry and crusty. Smite with a scab. Dry and crusty. The roots of the hair is dry and crusty. And eventually it just falls off. And then they go and make it worse. They go and make it worse by putting another person's hair into their own head. Sewing another person's hair into their own hair. Making it worse. Here you go. You're going to tell me that's not a scab head? Let's read it again. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. Now what's the crown of a woman? Her hair. It is right here. 1 Corinthians 11:15. But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her. Or another word for glory is it is a crown to her. It is a crown to her. For her hair is given her for a covering. And what does a king wear for a covering? A crown. Okay? So the woman's crown is her long hair. But what happened here? What happened here? Huh? What happened here? Scab. Okay? Now have the definition of the word scab. It is here, scab. A dry, rough, protective crust that forms over a cut or wound during healing. Let's look at the first part. A dry, rough, protective crust. A dry, rough, protective crust. There you go. A dry, rough, protective crust. Here's your examples. Look at that. Look at that. Huh? And that's the story for many a so-called black woman. That's why they cover it up with these weaves. If you were to look underneath this, you'd be shocked to see what you find, man. Okay? The same thing with this chick. If you were to really peel back her weave, you'd be shocked to see what you find. You'll see that dry, rough, protective crust, the scab. Look at that. I told you I'd come back to these pictures. Same thing here. Damn shame, man. But that's the curse, because the so-called black woman is haughty, is mean. She has this high and mighty attitude when she's really supposed to be submissive. A woman is supposed to be submissive. Okay? As it is written, a woman is not to usurp authority over the man. But you can't tell these so-called black women that. They believe they're over the man. Well, you're going to pay for it by having a scab head. How about that? Huh? And a lot of you so-called black women, you ain't going to make it, man. When that time comes, for when all hell breaks loose, the time of Jacob's trouble, martial law and disease, when diseases are, disease warfare is out here, and martial law and race wars, race riots, and all kind of hell which is coming to America. when it pops off, a lot of you so-called black women, you ain't going to make it, man. I got news for you. You ain't going to make it. As strong as you think you are, you ain't going to make it. You're going to fold like a cheap tent. And a lot of you are going to be looking for real men of the Lord, real men of this truth that will be standing strong. Because as it is written, knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of our time. So knowledge and wisdom is what's going to keep the Israelite man stable. And you think the so-called black woman won't notice it? Hell yeah, she's going to notice it. And then she's going to run to him. As a matter of fact, in the book of Isaiah, the 32nd chapter, it says just that. She's going to run to him for her protection. Okay? The book of Isaiah, the 32nd chapter, in the first verse, it says, well, the second verse actually, and a man, an Israelite man, a man that's rooted in this truth, this knowledge, and a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind, which is a metaphor for destruction. In the book of Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, it speaks about a destroying wind that will be sent upon Babylon. Babylon is America. That destroying wind is nuclear destruction, because that's what's coming to America, nuclear destruction. So a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind. What kind of man? A man rooted in this knowledge, this truth. Isaiah 34:16, knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times. And a covert from the tempest. What's another word for tempest? A storm, because that's what's coming. A shitstorm, okay? As rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a rock or a great rock in a weary land. So in other words, a man of the Lord, a man of this knowledge, wisdom, and truth, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding will be like the ultimate protection. Okay, a man rooted in the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of this truth will be like a great protection. And the so-called black woman will notice it. She will see it. Okay? As a matter of fact, when we jump down to the 9th verse, it says, rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. This is the Lord through the prophet Isaiah speaking to you so-called black women. Really all the women of the tribes, but mainly to you so-called black women, so-called West Indian woman, you so-called Haitian woman. It says, rise up, ye women that are at ease. And you are at ease. Okay, this society caters to you. You know, all the, what do you call it? All the entitlement programs, the government programs, they really cater to you. And at the same time, that makes you at ease. That's why you run around saying, I don't need no man. I can do bad by myself. That's why you have that haughty attitude. That adds to your haughty attitude, the fact that everything caters to you. Society caters to you. You know, it nets you that arrogant, superior, vain, conceited, snobbish attitude, that pompous attitude against your man. And you're going to pay for that. You are going to pay for that. And I'm reading it right here. Many, let me jump back to the 9th verse. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. Many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women, for the vintage shall fail. That means all these entitlement programs, they're all going to fail. They're all going to be done away with, one by one. You know, Section 8, welfare, okay, WIC programs, one by one, they're going to be done away with. That's what is meant by, for the vintage shall fail. The gathering shall not come. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. The days are coming when you're going to tremble. And if you're trembling, you women, you're going to look for someone to protect you. And that's why I read Isaiah 31 and 2. I'm sorry, Isaiah 32 and 2. A man of the Lord is going to be your real protection in those days. And you're going to find that out. It's going to suddenly dawn on you, I got to get with one of these men that know this truth. So I can be delivered. I can be saved. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you, make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. They shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. Yeah, an example of the teats, the pleasant fields, and the fruitful vine are these entitlement programs. A modern day example of that. That you are getting, you so-called black women. You're getting those entitlement programs, welfare, WIC, Section 8, All that's going to be done away with. And when it's done away with, where is that going to leave you? Now who are you going to trust in? You know what you're going to do? You're going to run back to that same so-called black man that you used to look down upon, that you used to be snobbish against. Oh yeah, the Lord is going to break your pride, okay? You better believe it. The Lord is going to break your pride. But anyway, for your haughtiness, you're paying for it by being fucking bald. Okay? There you go. There's example or exhibit A. The mentally insane black female. And the majority of you are mentally insane. That's why the real so-called black men that have sense avoid you like a plague. Okay? They avoid you like a plague. They stay away from you, you so-called black women. Well, you did say you can do bad by your, like this chick here, man. You got guys like Tommy Sotomayor and this other guy, Obsidian. I listen to both of them. Those two, the other guy, there's another one too. He's a Hebrew Israelite, Black Ram. I also check out his videos. They all know to stay away from you so-called black women. Okay? As a matter of fact, Tommy Sotomayor became rich. He built his platform off getting down on you so-called black women. Okay? That mansion that he's living in not Las Vegas, Phoenix, Arizona, that was afforded to him by, I'm talking about Tommy Sotomayor, that was afforded to him by getting down on you so-called black women. And to show you how mentally insane you are, his platform, Tommy Sotomayor, is about getting on you so-called black women, and that's the #1 fan of Tommy Sotomayor, the so-called black woman. You so-called black women are truly insane. That's why the best thing a man can do is to stay away from you. Okay? But anyway, getting back to Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. Therefore, the 17th verse, therefore the Lord, and the Lord did this. The Lord did this to you, so-called black woman. The Lord did this to you. Smite you with a scab. Because at one time the Lord gave you your glory. Okay? 1 Corinthians 11 and 15 gave you your glory in long hair. Now, when you go in, I have an example of a so-called black woman that had long hair. Let's read the book of John, the 12th chapter. The 1st verse. Then Yahushua, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus, where Lazarus was which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served. But Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. This is the same Lazarus that Yahushua raised up from the dead. Then took Mary. Now Mary was the sister of Martha. These were two sisters that lived in Bethany. Okay. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Yahushua and wiped his feet with her hair. Not with a weave, with her hair, with her real hair. So for Mary to wipe the feet of Yahushua with her hair meant she had to have a lot of hair for her to do that. And the reason why Mary had a lot of hair is because it was her glory. Let's read it again. 1 Corinthians 11 and 15. But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her. For her hair is given her for a covering. So this Mary here had a blessed covering. Okay? John 12 and 3. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Yahushua and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Now, I guarantee you Mary didn't look like this. Okay? Mary did not look like this. All right? With a scab head. No, she had her hair. Mary didn't look like this. A person that looks like this does not wipe the feet of Yahushua's hair. You call him Jesus Christ. His name, his true name is Yahushua. A person that looks like this will not wipe the feet of our Lord's, will not wipe the Lord's feet with looking like this. Okay, it ain't gonna happen. Come on. All right. It's not gonna happen. So I just gave you an example in the book of John of how you had certain so-called black women that had a blessing. All right. Had their real hair, long hair, a glory unto them. One example is Mary, this Mary that I just read here. So what happened? What happened? Well, when you jump back to the book of Isaiah, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse, does it not say, for behold, the Lord of hosts, doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah. Doth take away. So your glory was taken away, so-called black woman. Your glory was taken away for your nasty attitude. We just read it in the 16th verse, because you are haughty and walk with stretched forth necks. That's why you are bald. All right? And I'm reading it here, 17th verse. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. Because now you're dressing like a whore when you're really supposed to be covered up. Scriptures speak about a woman wearing modest clothing. Okay? But you can't deny. And by me doing this, this fits who? This fits the so-called black woman. And this proves that we are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Because that curse fell upon Judah and Jerusalem. Okay? But mainly Judah, the tribe of Judah. Now, when you go down to the 24th verse, it even gets even more explicit. Isaiah 3 and 24. And it shall come to pass, meaning it's going to happen, and it's happening now, that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink. That's talking about the vagina. One of the reasons why the vagina of this, in particular, the so-called black woman stinks is because, number one, she doesn't properly clean herself. In the book of Esther, the 2nd chapter, it speaks about the manner and purification of a woman. The so-called black woman has no idea of that. Let me show you that. The book of Esther, the 2nd chapter, I think it's around the 12th verse. There was a certain manner of purification for a woman. It is right here. The book of Esther, the 2nd chapter, the 12th verse. Now, when every maid's turn was to come to go into King Ahasuerus, after that she had spent, or she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, 12 months according to the manner of the women, for so were the days of their purifications accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, so they'd bathe in 6 months, or soak in 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women. For the purifying of the women. But now today, the woman smell like I always like to say, the women smell like a gas station in New Jersey. Hoboken, okay? They smell pretty damn bad. And that goes back to the curse. Isaiah 3 and 24. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, because a woman used to smell sweet, the manner and purification of a woman, Esther the 2nd chapter, the 12th verse, instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink, and instead of a girdle, a rent. A girdle is worn to give shape. So when it says instead of a girdle, a rent, meaning out of shape. And I don't have to tell you about the so-called black woman. That's the number one out of shape woman on the planet, the so-called black woman. The majority of them are morbidly obese. And it goes back to their diet. It goes back to many things. Okay? But it mainly goes back to prophecy. We're reading it here. And instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well-set hair, baldness. Let's go back to the article. What does the article say? Huh? The bald and the beautiful, which they're not beautiful. Okay? The bald, let's read it how it should say. The bald black woman need to get real about hair weaves. The bald. This article clearly points out how the so-called black woman, the majority of them are bald. It says 50%, but she's being conservative. Okay? There it is right here. Let's read that again. This isn't a question of who is selling out more. the naturals, straight naturals, the relaxed, or the weave wearers. It's a question of baldness, and it needs to be addressed. There you go. And I'm addressing it according to Scripture, Isaiah 3:24. And instead of well-set hair, baldness. Now, who the hell does that fit? And by me doing this, this proves that we are of the nation of Israel, that we are of the tribe of Judah, that we are of the tribe of Benjamin, we are of the tribe of Levi, which that curse mainly fell upon. Okay? That we are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. The fact that our women is bald and ugly. They're bald and ugly. Because as you read on, it says, instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. Burning means ugliness. Ugliness. The majority of our women are ugly. They're ugly, man. They're not easy on the eyes. And they have to wear tons and tons of makeup. Okay? Like this chick here. Can you imagine what she looks like when she wakes up in the morning or when she takes this weave out? Ugly, man. Huh? Very few of our women have that natural beauty. That natural beauty that a man loves. It tells you that in the Apocrypha. The beauty of the countenance of a woman cheereth up a man, and a man love nothing better. Because a man's glory is his woman. That's right. A man's glory is his woman. Okay? As it is written. There you go. Burning instead of beauty. Come on, man. Like I said, if she were to take the makeup off, you know, again, in the Apocrypha, it says a whore is known by her eyelids. You know what that means? A whore wears heavy eye makeup. You can tell a real whore by her heavy eye makeup. For those of you that don't know, that's according to the Apocrypha. Now, if she were to take this weave off her head and wake up in the morning with none of this lipstick and all, man, you'd want to jump out the window, man. You say, well, you'll say to yourself, I must have got drunk last night to deal with this chick. even Rihanna, okay? That's a result of having money, okay? Looking like that. All right? If Rihanna was a black chick that worked at McDonald's, she wouldn't look like this, man. All right? And no comment. No comment whatsoever. And this lesbian over here, a result of having money. And look at it. I'm supposed to believe this is her real hair. I'm supposed to believe when she popped out of her mother's when her mother gave birth to her, she came out with hair looking like that. I'm supposed to believe that? Come on, man. But yet these so-called black women will tell you, I want a man that's honest. I want a man that's truthful to me. And everything about her is a lie. Everything about the so-called black woman is a lie. Okay? But anyway, there it is, brothers. And the few sisters that may be watching. Some of you will probably not watch anymore. But this is the brutal truth, the brutal honesty. And at the same time, I prove that we are of the nation of Israel, using the so-called black woman. All right, so I'm going to end it there. The video ran pretty damn long, but hopefully you were edified by this lesson. This is Mailbag Extra, and I'll see you in the next edition. Shalom.